Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar, 2021 Equity Crowdfunding Marketing Tips. Excited to have you all here with us today, as well as to have Campaign Manager, Account Manager Upasna here with us today.
Hello, so excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And Upasna, this is your first webinar joining with us. You have a rich experience in the world of equity investment crowdfunding, a committed career around it. Do you want to talk a little bit about yourself, your background, your campaign experience, and why your recommendations are so meaningful?
Certainly, yeah, I would love to. So I actually joined the equity crowdfunding space back in 2017 when the industry was still very young and nascent. I joined as an intern at Start Engine, actually, was an intern at Start Engine which is one of the leading funding portals in the equity crowdfunding industry for anybody that isn't aware. Was an intern at Start Engine for about 4 months and then eventually came on board full time in lead generation as well as business development. So, I've been with operating within the equity crowdfunding space for a good 3.5 to 4 years now. I actually wrote a research paper about it in college, which is what originally sparked my interest in the space. And post Start Engine, about 3 months ago, I came on board at DNA as an account manager. So I work with issuers to help them raise as much capital as possible on their equity crowdfunding campaigns across all the platforms in the space. So Start Engine, WeFunder, Republic, Microventures, you name it. But I have tons of experience working with issuers, with the regulations themselves, on the ins and outs of the funding portal mechanisms and how they work, as well as the marketing strategy and what really makes a good campaign uh, successful in the space. So really excited to share my knowledge on the webinar today.
And Upasna is managing 15 to 20 live campaigns at a time with us, starting at the planning stage, but looking at a high volume here in January of 2021. We're going to go into some of the metrics. As you may know from my background, I've been working in investor acquisition since 2014, first with Reg D, then Reg CF, as an agency, over 200 campaigns to date, 9 figures of capital, and we have not seen anything like what has occurred since March of 2020 here. December being the biggest month to date, January in path to compete, if not surpass that, and already at similar levels from November. And what everyone wants to talk about, the new regulations, the new expansion of Reg CF, Reg A+. We're going to go into marketing tips here and going to share my screen so that we can go over some of these different concepts that we've put together here. And just to give you the background, have been working on the growth, the expansion to these regulations for quite some time. Upasna, while I'm pulling up this file, when was the first time that you heard that Reg CF would be expanding from 1.07 million to 5 million?
Sure. I think the industry was lobbying the SEC to extend the cap on Reg CF for a few years now. But when, the news really started to make its way around the industry was around this time last year, actually, which is when I believe the amendments were proposed. Um, and, it was a super exciting time in the space. There was a buzz around all the portals about the extension, the 1.07 million cap being increased to 5 million for regulation crowdfunding, which is a huge increase, which obviously means issuers in the space can raise a lot more money a lot more quickly. So it was definitely a super exciting time in the Reg CF world and in the Jobs Act world. And we've been sitting on these changes for about a year now, and it's so exciting to see that they've finally been enacted by the Federal Register. So I believe they officially go into effect on March 15th, which is very exciting.
Yes. And, I've been waiting personally. I first heard of equity crowdfunding in 2014, was presented to from a Reg D equity crowdfunding portal and telling us about Title III of the Jobs Act. We thought it was going to be any month, ended up being May 2016. DNA started running advertising to these campaigns upon the first day of regulation. And since about 2017, 2018 have been told, oh, it's coming. 1.07 million is going to be 5. Reg A plus 50 million is going to be 75. And all of these different types of groups are going to be attracted as a result. Now, ever since started, I've been explaining on a daily basis to friends, family, prospective issuers, partners about what regulation crowdfunding is and talking about when this would happen. So the fact that we now have a date, March 15th, 2021, is really mind-blowing to me. And as you can see, on the screen here, talking about some of the things that are going to expand for us, some of the factors that we want to talk about today. Test the waters. Historically, we weren't allowed to do a pre-launch, do an announcement of the offering before it was made public and available to all investors so that they all had the same opportunity to participate. Increasing accredited investor limits. Right now, it's 107K across all investments for the highest net worth bracket. All investments for the year. Now we'll be able to go back to them multiple times for the same deals, as well as different platforms that they can be on, grouping of the investors onto the same area of the cap table. So us here on the marketing side are going to talk about different ways that you can get more traction. You could scale from a successful 1.07 to $5 million in this presentation.
Absolutely. Yeah. The rule changes are super exciting because, like Jason mentioned, not only is the cap increasing from 1.07 to 5 million, but issuers can now run test the waters campaigns, meaning they can actually start soliciting investors and promoting a potential fundraise to the public before they file their Form C or before they officially launch their campaign, which is a huge deal because test the waters was something that was available for Reg A plus companies that were raising all the way up to 50 million, but it was not permissible for all these years for Reg CF companies, which was a huge barrier to entry for a lot of companies in the industry actually. And the fact that test the waters is officially available to companies is huge because companies can actually start building up that excitement, building up that momentum before they officially start accepting investments, so that when they do go live with their campaign, they start getting investments right out the gate because they've already built that excitement and momentum around the offering thanks to the test the waters.
Yeah. And we've been doing this on Reg A plus campaigns since 2016 here as an agency, and generally shoot for a 10% reservation to completed investment percentage ratio. There are tactics to increase that, and we've been able to run retargeting ads and other types of funnel marketing to see more of a 30% of reservation to completed investment levels. Nonetheless, big deal. As you can see, we're creating a new shift in the industry on this next page here. And just speaking with industry partners, the type of institutional groups and other types of larger investor organizations that want to get involved has just skyrocketed. And it's as a result of this. This is taken from King's Crowd, our analytics source, if you will, or the trusted platform that we look at to see which numbers are happening in the industry. So just in the past week, over $5.4 million raised, over $21 million for January alone. I think it's upwards of 80 new campaigns that have launched in January. Here's some of the raise amounts for each of the portals. And going back further enough, that this would be a great month for them. This would be a great month for the industry going back, even further than that. And as I mentioned in the opening a bit, we're already at the same levels, 21 million, that we were at in November, biggest month to date at the time. October, November, both are around the 21 million level. So to see this type of traction going into the expansion, thinking of all the new investors that have entered the pool, WeFunder's over 850,000, Republic's over 800,000. Start Engine has a massive, very engaged audience, as well as about 10 other portals who are pushing for this monthly growth. To see this going into the expansion is something that just wasn't expected.
Yeah. And, interestingly, although COVID has had such a disastrous effect on the economy, what we've seen is COVID, the one silver lining about it is that it has really accelerated momentum within the equity crowdfunding space. Because what we saw at the beginning of COVID is that VCs that most startups and early stage companies typically look towards for early stage investments, VCs were running to the hills because they were caught off guard. They were super nervous, afraid of the impact that COVID would have on these businesses that were looking for funding. And because venture capital investment dried out last year and really dropped, actually, VC investments last year dropped at somewhere between 20 to 25% as compared to in 2019. It ended up being a huge catalyst for equity crowdfunding, which is awesome because what venture capital couldn't do, equity crowdfunding stepped in to do for these small and middle-sized businesses that needed funding support to survive and thrive in
Yeah,
the economic climate.
exactly. And again, it just wasn't projected that the retail investor explosion would occur. And that's directly what we saw. The Robinhood investor, it's been having a strong impact on digital assets over the past few months. Some big events this week, even looking at GameStop and other types of groups and how retail investors are responding to that. And they want private equity opportunities. They want to get involved in Facebook in 2006, and that's what this makes available and democratized across all different individuals, not just accredited who are presented these type of opportunities. And speaking of the marketing side, we want to get to this next page about the Test the Waters campaign. As Upasna was mentioning, it is a game changer. There's been opportunities to put things into private mode before going into public mode on different portals. There's been ways to, without priming the pump, as the SEC would say, to audience build leading up to a campaign. You don't want to do it in a way that's drastically different from your normal marketing. But basically, to take it a step back, crowdfunding first started with reward-based crowdfunding. And when I was at Indiegogo's offices, they would say, make sure you set your external goal appropriately and so that you can hit a third of it in the first 24 hours. So you're trying to raise 50K externally, make sure you have at least 15K in the first 24 hours. You can look to have 100K, 200K internal goal, but surpass that and get 100% as quick as possible. Looking at those fundamentals, there were calculators that would show, hey, here's your audience size. Here's how much you can raise on a reward-based crowdfunding platform. A variety of other metrics to give a more precise type of number around it, but the theme remains the same. If you're able to put together, let's say, an email list of 10,000 prospective investors who are opting in, they're saying, I want to be part of this deal day one. As soon as it comes out, here's my reservation. Here's the shares I want. Save these for me. You may be able to see 200 investors day one of your live campaign, which is, drastically different than starting with a low amount, or even having, some type of anchor lead investor kick off the round. You could have 200 investors at $500 each and $100,000 right out of the gate. It's a much different experience for a prospective investor who knows nothing about you. Maybe they participated in 3 Start Engine deals or WeFunder deals or Republic. You're on one of these portals, and you're reaching investors who are already in the system. They see your deal come up as a new opportunity, and they get there, and there's 20K raised, there's 45, or you're in the 6-figure range. Completely different experience. It shows something in terms of social proof. It shows that people want this. It starts giving you a line around the block feeling. So, test the waters is in reward crowdfunding looked at as, the focus. How much can you put together in the pre-launch? And now it's available for Reg CF. I'm picturing campaigns that do 7 figures right out of the gate and are playing for that 5 million mark, but with 2 million, 3 million in the first week, which again is just a completely different campaign as a whole.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. I think the Test the Waters amendment is really going to be a game changer with Reg CF companies. And, building on what you said, Jason, interestingly, the new amendment also states that in order to set up and run a Test the Waters campaign, companies don't necessarily need to be doing it through an intermediary platform, meaning companies don't have to be signed with a portal before they launch a Test the Waters campaign for their Reg CF offering. They can be doing it themselves on their website, or build a fresh new landing page just for a pre-launch campaign, which gives them more time to make the right decision as to what portal they ultimately want to move forward with for their campaign when it does launch. It gives them more time to think through those more strategic decisions about where they want to be raising money on their Reg CF campaign without actually committing to a portal before, uh, just testing crowd interest.
100%. And testing marketing channels throughout the process and while building this audience. So as we get, into the Test the Waters discussion further and bridging into some of the accredited investor points, but just talking about Test the Waters a bit further, marketing, you can run the Facebook advertising campaigns you would to your live offering, but to a landing page, to a funnel that Upasna is describing. ClickFunnels, lead page unbounce with an email automation system behind it, HubSpot. There's a lot of different options to use for this, where there could be a landing page, an email submission, allowing for a document or some type of video, some type of asset that's sent right away, compliant, of course, and then an email drip to follow, an email sequence, as if you as a founder were following up with this prospective investor, but in an automated fashion that could support thousands, even more recipients. And again, playing for those type of large conversion numbers from a much bigger audience upon day one. You could use Facebook ads with the different audiences to this type of funnel. Can look at various types of organic traffic sources or other paid channels. We're going to talk about some community channels that are emerging a little further in this. But whatever it is, we used to use reward-based crowdfund marketing as the pre-launch as market testing. So whatever we were able to walk away with pre-launch with, we knew we could continue to leverage those channels during the live campaign. If we were hitting a $1 per email, $2 per email sign up, Facebook like, if it's that type of audience growth, whatever, area you're looking at to grow your community, if we were able to have that metric, we were able to run it through another algorithm and project how much a cost per acquisition of each conversion would be to follow, meaning how much we're paying per investor to follow. If it's $2 to $5 per email sign up, maybe we're shooting for $25 to $75 as a cost per acquisition of each investor to get that converted and pushed all the way through. More importantly, we can scale and we can look at what it takes to get to an audience of 10,000, 50,000, 100,000. I'm seeing in some plans that we're putting together now. Obviously, we can't launch the test the waters until the campaigns go into effect, but that's literally what's part of our planning discussions today, and how you can use these different marketing channels to pre-launch the campaign itself, even bridge publisher relationships, which take a while to develop, influencer activations, which can take a while to physically get in the books. This is what the extra time allows for.
Mhm.
And
Absolutely.
moving on to the accredited investor page there, what are your thoughts on this, Upasna? How is this going to change the way that we target campaigns and some of the questions that you get on a day-to-day basis from founders?
Sure. Well, I think this is also another big jump for the industry as a whole because, Reg CF enables companies to raise up to 5 million from both accredited as well as non-accredited investors, right? But previously, not accredited investors, which are basically more sophisticated investors, they were limited as to how much money they could put into a campaign based on their annual income and net worth. Um, and the maximum an accredited investor could plug into a Reg CF campaign was 107,000, regardless of their annual income and net worth. But now all caps or limitations on accredited investor investments on Reg CF have been removed. So that is a game changer actually for Reg CF issuers, just because, primarily I'd say the bulk of the investor audience with these Reg CF campaigns were retail investors and non-accredited investors. But based off of the fact that accredited investors don't have limitations anymore, what I do envision is a lot more sophisticated investors will be taking notice of the companies in this space and will be investing larger amounts of money into these issuers as well, now that all limitations have been removed. So I think for anybody, that plans on launching a Reg CF campaign, um, this year or anytime in the future, I think targeting big ticket investors is going to be a very important strategy for companies, alongside, of course, targeting retail investors as well, and bringing in a large uh, brand ambassadorship with a retail audience. But it will be really important to bring in some big ticket lead investors on a campaign as well for social proof, for um, you know increased visibility, for all sorts of reasons. And there are a number of different ways to go about doing this. Here at DNA, we do offer something called LinkedIn Outreach, which is a program where we are actually able to target up to 50 angel investors per day on through a founder's LinkedIn profile, um, and create a 4 message drip sequence where we are reaching out to various angel investors through the founder's profile and talking about the campaign, the Reg CF campaign, the company's traction, their track record, and why an investor should invest. And we've actually had a lot of success with that program. We had an investor recently commit $25,000 on one of our live Reg CF campaigns, thanks to LinkedIn Outreach. So this is definitely a key strategy to be leveraging going into 2021.
Those LinkedIn messages that show up on your inbox, they work. They're producing these type of inquiries. Again, a compliant way to go about it, and you're going to want to discuss that with your portal to make sure that you're following all rules, and that is going to be easier with the 2021 regulation. But just to give you an idea, we put together a lot of numbers here. We're always working in algorithms. I mentioned a $25 to $75 cost per acquisition before. If we're hitting a $75 cost per acquisition and seeing a $750 AOV, average order value, average investment value, that's a 10x return on ad spend. Clients are generally happy with that. Also, as we're producing these advertising conversions, the traction is seen from audiences in the portal, and it raises. PR takes place, other organic traffic sources produce. It could easily be a 20x 40x type return on marketing spend, while the return on advertising spend is 10x. We're seeing about 20 to 50% of full $1.07 million campaign conversions come from advertising. So you can see how the multipliers and the channels all take place. Now, $750 as an average investment amount, that's taking into account $100, $500 minimum investment levels. Clients are generally sitting somewhere in between there. From the advertising side, we actually recommend more of the $300 to $500 level because it leads for a greater return on ad spend, and we don't see a massive drop in conversion rate. Although some of the portals recommend $100, which is a great way to get more investors into the campaign itself. So there's a lot of different styles when it comes to that strategy. Meanwhile, if we wanted to talk Reg D campaigns, accredited investors there, $10,000 minimum, $25,000 minimum. We've worked on campaigns in commercial real estate as high as $250K as a minimum for an accredited investor to participate in. So as Upasna is saying, an investor who's putting in $250K or more may not even be interested in $100,000 investment based on the lack of scale that it could provide, even with a strong return. But more importantly, I think this is going to show a much stronger return on ad spend across the board on these campaigns. You look at the metrics, and let's say we wanted to look at the metrics for one day. You take that 25K accredited investor amount that Upasna was mentioning, maybe another $5,000 in other investor conversions from that day, and $30,000, maybe 500 was spent on marketing that day, and you're at 60x type return. That's for one day, of course. It would all come down to consistency to see those numbers really pan out. But at the same time, that is what analytics are going to look like, with more accredited investors getting involved, putting in 2,500, 5K, 10K, 25K, above 107K. We would see this on our Reg A Plus campaigns, since 2017, 2016 in pre-launch, where we'd get a massive investment, and what it would do for the analytics for the month, how we'd be able to scale more into marketing as a result. And as you can see in these pro tips here on how to reach accredited investors, Upasna talked about direct outreach, LinkedIn, sending an invitation, and then messages from there is a great, non-intrusive, somewhat personal way to do it, as it shows a profile pic, mutual contacts, background info. You probably have a high volume of second-degree connections if you're doing enough networking there. Creating a video, presenting your pitch deck and share on social media. We're seeing video pitch decks. We're seeing sections of pitch decks in video and 10 different bite-sized ones distributed across the month. Hold an investor Q&A webinar. Do it on Zoom. Why not have your anchor investor on a one-on-one Zoom and have them addressing you with questions that they had going into the deal and that the audience may have in that moment, and being able to track those larger audiences. We've heard some portals making recommendations to physically invite these accredited investors in group Zooms. So there's 5 or 10 of them doing a round table with you about the investment opportunity. I've attended a lot of these in person, and there'll generally be one personality that takes the lead on these conversations, and as they're sold, as they're excited about moving forward, you could watch the rest of the table come to life. Given a lot of these were back room in a steakhouse type of setup. So, you may want to make it a bit more exciting, send some Uber Eats or Postmates their way. A lot of different ways to make video a fun, enjoyable, impactful experience that leads you with what you're looking to measure at the end of the day. Writing a blog article discussing the marketing opportunity using keywords that are just trending, distributing to publishers, distributing to influencers, distributing to groups, publishing on Medium, LinkedIn publishing, Quora. There's a list of things you could talk about in regards to this, and not to mention beyond the investment opportunity, it's just good marketing. It's going to position you as a thought leader regardless. Showcase as much business momentum, such as new partners, team members, acquisitions, revenue streams, or product developments. Picture the call you would have with each individual investor. Hey, this week we put together this deal. Hey, we just got an LOI this week. Hey, we are featured by Entrepreneur. Check it out. Do you know anyone who'd like to see this? Let's share it. We did the Zoom this week, have a lead investor, have a strategic partner talking about us. You want to always be coming to the table, showcasing that traction, showcasing that journey the organization's going on. So the prospective investor wants to hop on board to that. And again, not a more important time than right now to be talking about this for accredited investors and the plans that you're putting together here in late January for March 15th. Invite an accredited investor to leave a written or video testimonial. Justin Renfro at WeFunder recommends doing a LinkedIn post and having 200 or more investors commenting on the deal itself, which would do amazing things for the LinkedIn algorithm. I see the WeFunder team, and I know other portals do this as well, start commenting and being involved there as well. If we're asked at DNA, we'll do the same. Any group that's involved with can add and comment. It'll actually show up on the commenters' feeds. And again, just the visibility of that will be widespread and in a third-party validated fashion. So a lot of ways to do written video testimonials, a lot of platforms to have that live on. Attend online networking events in your industry. Going to talk about that a little further, as well as join investor groups on Clubhouse, as well as other social platforms. Already run into investing and LinkedIn outreach. There's so much that can be done digitally today. Have multiple webinars, podcasts that I'm going to be involved with today. I'll have days in my calendar where I'm speaking at multiple digital conferences, which would be impossible from a geographical logistic point of view in years past. You could go on, network with the exact people based on the search filters you're putting in. Just like on LinkedIn, a lot of investors will put themselves as a category specific investor on one of these digital events. And you could really work the room digitally in a couple hours, or have someone on your team do the busy work, have a calendar scheduling link in there. And for the next 2 weeks, you're doing follow-up calls as if you attended the conference physically. Never more opportunities than now to do that type of digital networking and at high volumes.
Yeah, absolutely. And then just going off of that very quickly, not only do accredited investors not have investment caps anymore, uh, issuers in the Reg CF space can actually compile all their investors into a single line item on their cap table. Or an SPV, a special purpose vehicle. This is something that wasn't available to issuers previously via Reg CF, which actually caused some barriers to entry and some frustrations as well, because most institutional investors do like to see SPVs on a company's cap table before making an investment. And so, issuers that were interested in doing a Reg CF and then maybe getting some institutional investment later down the line actually were hindered from launching a Reg CF just because the SPV solution was not available until now. Issuers can now, with the rule change, actually compile all their investors into a one-line item on their cap table. And that's why accredited investors would be more interested in investing in these campaigns as well. So, we really want VCs to be coming in and investing in these deals alongside retail investors, which builds major credibility for these issuers in bringing in more retail investors once they see, a big name lead investor on the company's campaign. And the way to bring in big lead investors, in addition to everything Jason mentioned, is to really, outside of just building out brand excitement, also showcasing the business itself, like why the business model works, what is so special about the founding team, why the company deserves an investment, how the company is beating out competition in the space, what the revenue projections are year over year. These are things that institutional investors care about when making their investment decisions. So moving forward, we will be seeing, in addition to a lot of exciting brand related content, also really focusing on the messaging towards accredited investors and leveraging company traction.
Excellent. Excellent. And as you're tapping into new audiences, there are more platforms that are emerging. Uh, Friends with a lot of professional speakers who are living in the club, living in Clubhouse today, um, building up their audiences, being able to participate in different panels, investors, a lot of investor type of rooms that are happening right now in Clubhouse. Invite only, super easy to get invites. And if you're not on there, and whether you are or not, I would recommend exploring different rooms today, seeing how you could participate in those. We're friends with the group launch team that launches books for thought leaders. They're hosting a conference on there today. There's different things that are occurring on an hourly basis. A lot of activity, a lot of traction. You'll see a top marketing agency speaking with Grant Cardone, or a thought leader of that level on a regular basis. We try to be at the forefront of these. Gary Vee really pushed us onto that with TikTok and Snapchat even before so, where if you're the first of your industry, an early adopter of your industry, to be on a platform, you could really dominate, where it could take years to rank at that level on Google or other search engines, similar time periods to have any type of critical mass on more commonplace social platforms such as Instagram. LinkedIn has different strategies towards it, but there's channels that are very difficult to build an audience. Could literally be part of these live discussions on a daily basis, positioning your business as a thought leader, finding opportunities to make it available for investors to participate and partner with you in the growth that is to come in the years to follow. Not pushing it, but as questions get brought up, making it available. We know issuers that are planning to host rooms on there, seeing a lot of traction from the portals on there directly. So being able to leverage these type of platforms is something that we highly recommend. Also, I'm seeing new connections on Signal on a daily basis, similar to WhatsApp. Reminds me a lot of Telegram, but has been a popular investor platform. Been on my radar since about August, September. Elon Musk announced it a couple weeks ago, and I think it exploded 4,000% in the day to follow. So, be on the lookout for these. Community is one that I'm hearing founders talk about, where they could centralize their texts and have the text message going out to everyone. And unlike, 6% of your Facebook audience that'll see your Facebook post, community, you could reach 100% of your audience. It's going to show up on all of their phones. A lot of celebrities and influencers are using it, but heavily adopted in the VC and entrepreneurship worlds at the moment.
Yeah, and I actually heard from someone that uh, a Shark Tank founder was able to get on the line with Mark Cuban while he was doing his dishes at home, thanks to Clubhouse. So it gives you great access to, some really big and well recognized names in the tech and finance world. And, it's still in the early adopter phase. And that's precisely why now is really the best time to be leveraging it, because you get the platform and you get the attention without having to compete with too many other people. And Howard Marks, actually, the CEO of Start Engine, was on a panel on Clubhouse last week or 2 weeks ago. There are already equity crowdfunding groups that have been popping up on Clubhouse. So, it's a great place to be, to get your business and your pitch in front of some big investors and get a lot of visibility on what you're doing.
And always be thinking outside of the box. So, I talked about historical funnels. Facebook advertising is a top driver for these campaigns. We talked about LinkedIn outreach, funnels, speaking to content marketing, and of course, PR, traditional digital PR, we're seeing all types of channels being involved. Some of the largest Reg A Plus campaigns are leveraging broadcast TV. There's talks of different audio, podcast interviews that are being used as marketing channels. Always want to think outside of the box. When we're working on strategy and we put together target audience personas, we put a fictional name together. You've probably heard us talk about this, and try to personify who we're trying to reach, and really defining where they are online. So if we could see a touch point that is not being used and we need to scale up what we're doing a few weeks in, a few months in, this is the list we go to of secondary channels, and have seen all types of success on a case-by-case basis on non-traditional channels. So find ways to adopt this and test it out. Upasna, are you able to zoom in or present that screen just in a larger fashion to show the tips before we move on to the next slide here? Oh, perfect. Just to give an idea, we'll of course make this deck available to any logins here. If you're watching this on a video platform later on, reach out to us. We'll have contact info that could allow you to get your hands on this for your own internal discussions. And just, before moving on from this page, we're not limiting it to Signal Community Clubhouse, TikTok. These are places that you should be asking, can you integrate to your strategy, your client strategy, your team strategy, whether you're a founder, marketer, industry professional in-house at one of these groups, and exploring both paid and organic touch points. Rad Intelligence, we worked on a Reg CF campaign for them on WeFunder and use them as a top influencer marketing platform. They have influencer ad buys, influencer marketing packages that you can actually purchase impressions, different view metrics for TikTok. It's been a key access point in terms of discussions we've had around TikTok. Metrics that would be unheard of on Facebook. I've heard it compared to Facebook 5 years ago. So, if you don't have an exact strategy and you're talking to different marketers about what to do on these platforms, make sure you're looking at different access points. Do you create a page for your brand? Do you create a theme focused page? Are you running ads from there? Are you doing content? Are you having influencers talk about it? What's the payment model, or overall deal, or how are you attracting these guys? Are all questions that you want to ask.
Yes, certainly. And, it's the best way to reach Gen Zers, and specifically Gen Zers, because obviously the majority of the platform right now consists of Gen Zers that are going to be the investors of the future, really. So you want to build as much of an audience around, capture as many Gen Z eyes and ears as you can. While TikTok is still, in a phase where it's not as crowded with ads as Instagram and these other platforms are. So
Yep.
you definitely want to be leveraging TikTok.
And in 2015, I spent a countless number of meetings talking with groups in the VC community about why Facebook ads would convert investors, and getting a lot of pushback. If you're immediately saying TikTok won't work for investors, I would consider looking at channels from the lens of how could this work, and then determining whether or not it's viable for your campaign. It's not for every campaign what I would lead as a first test or even secondary. But at the same time, I would look to see where your audience is, and if the demographics in your Facebook advertising conversions are skewing younger or around specific niche communities that have a strong presence on TikTok, you may be able to get an unbelievable cost per acquisition from that channel.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And, moving on to the next page, you want to look for anywhere there's an existing audience. We really only put a few logos here. Whether you're paying for features for a research perspective and looking to mimic those headlines in your own campaigns, as we've seen that to be a common trend in terms of successful equity crowdfunding campaigns, or whether you're looking to get featured in an email list, anything from a research group, anything from a large investor funnel, Similar to the Motley Fool, but perhaps for private equity or even equity crowdfunding campaigns. We've had clients featured on Angels and Entrepreneurs in partnerships there, as well as Startup Camp. Heard different conversations around with Early Investor and a list of others. We actually have a list of over 50 of these email newsletters, and there can be a strong, amount of work and conversations up front, a strict approval process. It may be a long shot, but some of these research groups particularly are used to raise billions of dollars, leading into IPOs and things along those lines. 2021, they're now having conversations with the equity crowdfunding portals. They're now being used for issuers. And, I could put 100 different logos on this page. We just wanted to be broad in the discussions for both research and email audiences. But the idea is be where investors are researching. If you can build a relationship with that group, that entity, and get featured, it could mean massive amounts of investors in a very quick window of time.
Absolutely, and it's already a proven method of marketing. Nightscope launched a few ads and placements in The Hustle, which is also another one of these millennial-focused tech publications that has a huge readership in Silicon Valley, and was able to generate actually over 40,000, I believe, in investments. Uh, thanks to that feature. And then, I've seen companies like Miso Robotics, which is a Reg A Plus issuer that was raising on Seed Invest, I believe, also get featured in publications like Morning Brew and The Hustle. So these are definitely key places to, um, you know, just expose your brand and what you're doing to a huge audience of millennial investors, and bring in investments.
And
Especially,
going beyond the email lists on this page and going into digital conferences as a whole, we touched on this a bit, and you can see these things all go together. Test the waters, being able to look at accredited investors, bring in different third-party validation and go out in their emails, and then moving on here to digital conferences. It's not the same as a physical conference in many aspects. However, as I was mentioning, there can be all types of different advantages to participating in a digital fashion. Being able to look at physical conferences in the past, and as you can see on the page here, the host and attend events page, digital and live demos. We are expecting more in-person events. Have friends in Dubai at events right now, different parts of Kiev and different areas of Europe at conferences. So they are happening. But even once they happen in your closest city, the digital aspect is going to be huge, and you can log into events in 5 different countries in a single day or in a given week. You could go to the networking events for each, and you could time it out so you're doing a overseas networking event in the morning and a different one at the end of the day, maybe in Australia. Like you can have it set up to where you're reaching different audiences, different marketplaces. There's always pitch competitions. You can be directing people towards your portal offering. I think the ability to participate in a digital event is unique right now, and adoption is high for new formats. And you can literally be doing a different one every day, whether it's with a third party and you're using their validation, or whether it's going back to the webinar format for yourself and hosting something like this for a couple hundred people to log on to. And what that means for a prospective investor who's doing their due diligence and seeing that you're involved in all of these different things and hosting your own once a month, every week, every 2 weeks.
yes, absolutely. And now that the vaccine is finally starting to roll out here, what we'll see is that people will just be so excited to start going out again and networking and meeting people in person, and attending parties and social gatherings and all the things they couldn't really do for the past year. So, a few ways for issuers to really leverage that excitement that the crowd has to finally be able to go out again and be normal and network normally and not virtually, um, is hosting a launch party for your Reg CF raise, inviting everybody in your personal network, your first and second degree connections, your high school friends, your business associates, co-workers, inviting everybody to your launch party for your Reg CF offering, building up that excitement, and not only virtually but also through in-person gatherings, hosting dinners for accredited investors where they can speak with you, the founder, on a one-on-one level, and really get to know the business in a more personal way. um, and then Start Engine, which is one of the top funding portals in the industry, had Start Engine summits that they were hosting about every quarter for a few years in 2018 and 2019. So they had about 3 or 4 in-person conferences, um, on location in Santa Monica, that had an attendee list of about 500 to 600 people that showed up. And obviously, people, it was a whole day event and people would come and go through the day, but the end of the day was reserved just for networking. And what you saw is Start Engine was really able to build a more concrete brand voice through those in-person events, because people understood the brand better. People were able to meet with the whole team and understand the founder's vision, hear company pitches in person, and just free food and free drinks always attract people to live events, right? So the more you can leverage the excitement of being able to go out and have in-person gatherings again, I think the better that would be for your Reg CF offering for all the issuers out there that are listening.
And whether it's a physical event, whether it's a digital event, again, I would merge the two as much as possible, or at least emphasize the digital side, whether it's physical or digital. When we go to a conference, and I've spoken at conferences in 8 countries, usually spend a lot of time in airports. We have a whole plan going in. There's a pre-launch for it. We have meetings and everything set up for days leading into it, what happens during, what we're showing, what happens post, and it's all in the follow-up, I may add. Email follow-ups, LinkedIn follow-ups, advertising, retargeting, what dates you're going to be calling each week. If you're using 4 channels or more, you're going to get a much stronger response than if you just send an email out to everyone you met as a blast. So, really take into account the channels and frequency that you're following up with, the content that you're pointing towards. Are you inviting them to the next big thing? I like to build content calendars, and I like to have it as a storyline, and starting from beginning to end, making the audience the hero in that story. They have to feel good. They have to be getting value. They have to be engaged throughout the entire process. So you get to manufacture that entire experience in a replicatable format digitally. Look to have as high of volumes as you can of your target audience in your funnel before, during, after any of these demo days, investor dinners, digital conferences, physical conferences, festivals, clubhouses, whatever it may be. It's not a single event. It's part of your marketing campaign. You should have a before, during, after to your story. And getting to the last page here, 2021 is a year of big changes and opportunity in equity crowdfunding. To summarize, more startups turn to equity crowdfunding as an alternative to VC funding. I saw this happening in person in March, speaking at an accelerator and watching, startups get cancellation emails from VCs for their meetings saying they're not deploying capital until further notice. And by April, understanding that equity crowdfunding's picked up, more retail investors are in the marketplace. It's grown month over month since. So that's affected the quality of deals entering the marketplace. That has become more embraced by various types of accelerators, holding groups, VCs, angel investors, all sides of the table who want to get involved or look at these deals and consider it the future. More investors as a whole means quicker raises, more substantial raises. Again, we're planning for 5 million now in our plans, not 1.07 million, which was reserved for our Reg A plus type plans before, maybe some Reg Ds. Success rates are going to increase, raise amounts increasing, more portals emerging, high volumes of portals emerging, and niche focused as well too. Everyone has their own competitive separation and unique selling proposition. So that's exciting. More publications are emerging, as we were talking about, more social pages, more competition in the industry. But that is designed to push everyone to further levels. We have to always be looking to what the top issuers are doing for their marketing and how we could adopt it into our campaigns to keep us thinking outside of the box and us on our toes. We don't want to be selling MySpace ads in 2022, unless there's transformation there. But better and more accessible regulations is the theme, and it provides for all of this.
Yes, certainly. And, I guess I'll just end with a fun fact that I came across a few days ago, which is that, the 2008 recession was the catalyst for Kickstarter and Indiegogo to really come to life and gain massive adoption within the crowds. And this is kind of the crowdfunding revolution 2.0. Thanks to COVID, equity crowdfunding is really coming to the forefront, and private capital investing is really starting to gain prominence within the crowd because of the massive opportunity it presents for people to be a part of the next big Uber or the next big Airbnb, who knows. And so these regulations are, like I said, a game changer, and this industry is just going to keep growing year over year. So we're definitely in for the ride here at DNA, and we're looking forward to helping our companies find success in this space and raise up to 5 million and much more.
Excellent. And as we close this document here, just wanted to ask Upasna, amazing job. If anyone wants to get in contact with you and speak further about your perspectives towards equity crowdfunding, your recommendations, what is the best way to do so?
Yes, you can actually reach me via email on upasna@digitalnicheagency.com. You can find me on LinkedIn as well. My full name is Upasna Javeri. Or you can, reach out to anybody at DNA really, and they can connect you with me. So there are lots of different ways to reach me. And if you want to connect with me, feel free to, leave a message in the chat box, and I'm happy to connect with you offline after this webinar. But yes, just reach out to anybody at DNA and you can get connected with me.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, thanks everyone for tuning in. We are a stand for successful crowdfunds in this space here and investor acquisition as a whole in this emerging industry. We're excited about 2021. Glad that you are as well. Please do not hesitate. Reach out. We welcome a warm marketing conversation, partnership conversation at any time. And have a great rest of the day. Take care.